17 years ago, two brothers are working on a small game in their parents' house. That game, simply known as RuneScape. Today, RuneScape has grown to become the world's largest free-to-play MMORPG and the most updated game in history, according to the Guinness Book of World Records. So what is it exactly that has kept RuneScape going for as long as it has, and what exactly has kept it so popular? I'm Sushi Fish, and I'm here to figure out if it's all just nostalgia. Okay, so first, for those of you who don't actually have a clue about what RuneScape is, other than possibly a few memes that you've seen on the internet, RuneScape is like most other RPGs. You level skills, you kill monsters, do quests, and take part in PvP, all in a fantasy-based realm. RuneScape, for me, provides almost as much nostalgia as World of Warcraft does, which is actually an insane amount. I spent most of my teen years playing World of Warcraft and pretty much nothing more, which I kind of hate to admit, but we've all had those obsessions. There is a certain charm that RuneScape has. I recently started playing it again for a goof with a couple of my friends, just to see what it was like to play old school once again, and I was hooked, almost instantly. Sitting there, getting up my crafting and combat skills, going back to the Goblin Village in Lumbridge, seeing the cow fields, and surprisingly seeing a hell of a lot of new players. Which brings me on to my first point, and possibly my biggest gripe with any MMO. The dreaded grind. All MMOs have them, and some of them don't really manage to get it right. In fact, most of them don't manage to get it right, if I'm perfectly honest. Whether it be boring and repetitive quests or skills, or just constantly having to kill or collect things over and over. And RuneScape seriously suffers from this type of grind. But the main difference I've found with playing RuneScape compared to other MMOs is I don't really feel like endgame is my immediate goal. For example, with World of Warcraft, your endgame, without a doubt, is getting to that cap level. Hell, even Blizzard have introduced a paid option to get you to that cap from when you immediately start playing, whether that be through purchase of the level up service or from buying the latest expansion. Now, I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. People can play it how they want to play it, however they enjoy it, fine, it's up to them. But not having that feeling of wanting to rush to endgame is almost a breath of fresh air, which is quite ironic to say, seeing as this is a 17-year-old game. There is something very relaxing and very friendly about old school RuneScape. I mean, you'll have a lot of trolls and stuff like that, but all in all, I find that most MMOs are very easily accessible. But old school RuneScape tops them all. Everything is laid out to you in a very simplistic way. You aren't really overwhelmed with a plethora of spells, which I personally don't mind how complicated things can get, but it can be nice to a new player. You can just sit there and grind to your heart's content until you get yourself all the way up to mining Mithril, or you can go straight for combat. The choice is completely up to you, and that's something I really like. The general freedom of choice. One thing that I guess I need to mention is the graphics. Now obviously old school RuneScape keeps the graphics that they had back in 2007, which to me really isn't a problem. I understand that a lot of people really passionately hate old graphics, whether that be RuneScape or even with indie games such as Terraria or Stardew Valley or even Minecraft, but honestly, seeing someone go by in full gold trim still looks just as cool as it did back in the day. But even in the end, that is still personal preference, and not everyone is going to be pleased. Personally, I don't think it's a game breaker, and if you do, then there is always new RuneScape. This again makes me consider, why is old school RuneScape so popular? Surely it isn't just nostalgia. I mean, no doubt a lot of people rejoined it because of nostalgia, but I don't think that's enough to keep people engaged and involved in the game as much as they are. I need to give credit to Jagex for something, and that's polling stations. Basically, what happens with polling stations is that Jagex puts out an idea to the community, and the community vote on whether or not they would like that idea to be implemented into the game. There's a polling station in every banking game, and when a poll is live, there's a little yellow flag above the booth, and they also broadcast this poll on social media and even Reddit. And for a poll to be successful, it must be supported by at least 75% of the votes. If that's achieved, then the devs will add it. If not, then they don't. It's as simple as that, and it's a fantastic way to ensure that your game is community driven, which not only MMOs but also competitive games such as League of Legends, Overwatch and even Dota could use, assuming that they don't actually use that already. I probably should have done a bit of research into that. One of those polls was for old school RuneScape, which obviously was successful, and so in 2013, Jagex went on to open over 50 old school RuneScape servers and gave a month of free credit to all the people who had voted in the poll. The game very quickly saw the player counts equaling to those of the main version of the game, which is absolutely insane, and that is back when it wasn't even free to play. And since then, they've actually scrapped the membership and made it so that you can play a free version of the game just like you used to be able to. Obviously, there is still a membership with all the perks, but you can still play it for free, and back in January, it hit 69,000 people logged in at any given time, and that was the highest that it's ever actually had, which is absolutely insane. I mean, let's compare the current online stats to the Steam stats. There are currently 54,887 players online. That means that if Old School RuneScape was on Steam, it would currently be in the top 10 played games. In fact, it would be 4th place in between Team Fortress 2 and PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, which is genuinely insane for a 17-year-old game. I'm gonna say it, because I'm an absolute WoW fanatic. Look at those numbers. Look at what could be achieved with a legacy server. Could you imagine if Jagex took the same approach as this?
Have you ever thought about adding servers for previous expansions as they were then?
No. And by the way, you don't want to do that either. You think you do, but you don't.
Yeah, pretty ridiculous, right? Sorry about that. I had to go on a little rant. It just happens every now and again. So overall, do I think that Old School RuneScape is just a nostalgia fest? Partially, yeah, I do, but I also think that the nostalgia brings people back and it sucks them in to continue to play it. Until they end up just going, ah hell, I've done all the free to play stuff, time to buy members. And you can also buy members with bonds which cost 2 million gold pieces, which is also another wonderful system. Do I think it's a perfect game? Of course not. It has its low points, getting stuck on trees whilst following, your character running somewhere where you've told it not to, which is really, really annoying, especially seeing as you have a limited amount of run. Just other silly stuff like that, but honestly, I think RuneScape has truly stood the test of time, and I think it will continue to do so with a thriving community and committed developers. Maybe I'll even try the new RuneScape one day, but for now, I'll continue until I've got members and I've stolen everything from that damn marketplace. Those gems will be mine. And probably all the bread. And fish. I think there's fish on there. Either way, I'll steal everything. And then I'll sell it for not really that much. It's just self-gratification, okay? Bye!